Miss Ifi Otuya, tell us your story.
My name is Ifi Otuya. I'm going to share with you a story that is about my journey through paranoid schizophrenia and my eventual triumph over paranoid schizophrenia.
Okay.
My story began in 2009. I had just relocated from the UK to Nigeria to launch my music career. So at the time in Nigeria, the music scene was so exciting. There was a lot that was going on at the time. There were events, there were lots of venues that had one thing or the other popping off. The scene was very friendly and good for young artists who were performing music, who were making music, who were writing music, recording and doing all of that stuff. It was a very friendly and promising environment for us at the time. So I was at every event that was worth attending. A lot of people knew me at the time. I was constantly networking. I was constantly introducing my music to people. I was performing. I performed at the Future Awards, performed at Fella's Shrine, performed at so many notable events that were organized at the time. So a lot of people knew me, and I garnered a lot of fans along the way. I grew my for example, my Facebook fan page, grew pretty quickly at the time. A lot of people were interested in my art, in my music, and there was a lot of support. So by 2010, I noticed that money wasn't coming in the way money used to come in. A lot of event organizers and venues wanted to book artists to perform free shows, and just to not pay the artist. I wasn't the only one I found who this was happening to, but a lot of other artists that I knew at the time did complain that they had the same challenge, that people were not wanting to pay anymore. There was this thing that they said at the time that was so hot. They would say, use this as an opportunity to promote yourself, use this as an opportunity to meet new people and tell them about your music, to show to exhibit your sound to people. That was, the kind of thing that they said at the time. So it was quite depressing, to be honest, because as much as money was going out, money just wasn't coming in. That was a very terrible situation for a lot of artists, but specifically for myself. It hit me quite hard. I took it quite, hard. There was so much that I couldn't do anymore. I just found that I couldn't promote my music the same way that I used to be able to promote my music before. I was very sad about the way things had turned out. It wasn't what I expected before I moved back to Nigeria, and it wasn't what I experienced the previous year that I was in Nigeria. So I was pretty sad about how things had turned out. I remember falling ill physically, having malaria, my whole body shutting down. I would even lock myself in my room for hours, for days, for weeks, and wouldn't want to interact with any of my family members. I just stayed within the confines of my own company and didn't want to see people or be seen by people. I mean, this was my music career. I was so ambitious and optimistic about it, and here I was, my career had come to a standstill. There was just nothing more that I could do to change the way that things were, and that was a quite terrible situation for me. So as I didn't see any prospects for myself in the music industry here, as I didn't see a place for me on the entertainment scene, within a short period, I got my paperwork ready and I moved back to the UK. So when I got back to the UK, I soon got a job at a shop and I worked there, a normal job, and I supported myself and just kind of, carried on like nothing had happened. There went my career, which I had labored so hard for. Everything just kind of went down the drain, and there was nothing I felt that I could do, within my means that I could do to change the outcome. I feel that at this point was the onset of my mental illness, because I carried a lot of sadness with me, even though on the outside I held it together. Underneath I carried a lot of sadness with me, and I was depressed for for a long time, and I just sort of carried on, you know. Sometimes I made music, sometimes I did other things, but it just wasn't the same as it was before, and I wasn't as driven as I was before. I carried on like this up until 2016. In 2016, I was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. When I got the news, when the doctors told me, and I was hospitalized for it as well, when the doctors told me that I had paranoid schizophrenia, it was one of the craziest things I had ever heard, especially about myself. I just refused to accept that I had paranoid schizophrenia. I was angry, I was livid, I was mad, I was just angry at everything, at everyone, at the world, at life. I was like, why would such a thing happen to me? That how can I be diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, a mental illness, me? I just resisted it for the longest time. I refused to accept that I had that paranoid schizophrenia. For me, having paranoid schizophrenia meant that I wouldn't be able to do dope things again. I wouldn't be able to live life to the fullest anymore. I was a creative person, so the diagnosis meant to me that I wouldn't be able to create the way I used to create before, or not even be able to create at all anymore. I would forever be this person that was dependent on a caregiver or a family member or someone in my life, caring for me or breathing down my neck and asking me, have you taken your medication today? Someone who's always like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, remember your health, remember you're not strong enough to do these things. And I just resisted vehemently and refused to accept that I had paranoid schizophrenia. Now, on the outside, remember I was hospitalized. I said I was hospitalized for paranoid schizophrenia, and I hate the hospital. First of all, I hate being hospitalized at the hospital, but especially hated being hospitalized for paranoid schizophrenia. I didn't want to stay in the hospital. A lot of people who are hospitalized for mental illness feel the same way. They don't want to stay in the hospital. No one really likes, you don't wake up a day in your life and say, today I would like to be hospitalized and stay on the hospital beds and live through the hospital. No one really says that to themselves. So as much as I didn't want to stay in the hospital, I knew that if I continued saying to the doctors that I didn't have paranoid schizophrenia, they just wouldn't discharge me to go home. So on the outside, I agreed with the doctors that I had paranoid schizophrenia and told them everything they wanted to hear, and whatever they said to me, I just kind of accepted it and went along with them. But internally, I was at war with myself. Internally, I just resisted and battled the diagnosis, the symptoms, the treatment, trying to understand the changes that were going on with me, and just pretty much resisted for the longest of time. So I continued like this for a while. I experienced relapses along the way. I was re-hospitalized a number of times, going in and out of hospital year in, year out. That was how I sort of carried on for a while. In 2023, early this year, I reached a certain point where I felt that I couldn't carry on like this. This was not the life that I bargained for. I didn't want a life in which I would be going in and out of a hospital because of paranoid schizophrenia. I didn't want a story of myself in which the life that I lived was inseparable from paranoid schizophrenia. I didn't want to write the story of my life, and more than half of that story revolved around the impact of paranoid schizophrenia in my life. I knew that I wanted things to change, and even more importantly, I discovered that the decision and the power to change things had to come from me, myself. So I had a heart-to-heart with myself, and my turning point was when I, for the first time, wholly and fully accepted that I had paranoid schizophrenia. I literally said to myself, you know what? I have paranoid schizophrenia. This was after 7 years of diagnosis. I had paranoid schizophrenia, but I refused to accept that that was the end of my story. I knew there was more to me. I said to myself there was more to me. I was going to do more. I was going to do dope things. I was still going to do those dope things that I feared that my disease would not allow me to function at that level. I was still going to do dope things, and I was going to succeed at doing those things. As a matter of fact, I was going to write, create empowering stories, tell empowering stories about mental health recoveries. I was going to write articles about mental health with information in these articles that people need. I would arm myself and arm others with what they need to fight back and to overcome mental disorder, mental illness in society. These were the things that I said to myself. And you know what? After I made these proclamations and I said these things to myself, I got up and I did it. In spite of the negativity and all the condemnation that this sickness had fed me for years, in spite of all the battle, I got up and I did it. Now today, I'm living a completely transformed life. The symptoms that I used to exhibit whilst battling through paranoid schizophrenia in the past years, I no longer exhibit those symptoms. And I continue to say that the reason for this change in my life was that turning point that I reached, where I seized the moment essentially and made specific changes in my life. That catapulted me to a place of transformation. I no longer exhibit those mental illness symptoms in my life right now. I'm also doing all the things that I said that I was going to do. I'm creating empowering stories about mental health recoveries to help people recover faster from mental illness. I am equipping people, individuals and the likes, with strategies, tips, information that they need to address mental health challenges in their lives and to address mental health challenges in the lives of other people, family, friends, loved ones, without fear of stigmatization or condemnation. You know, if it took me 7 or even more years to arrive at the place that I am at right now, it doesn't have to take you up to 3 years or even up to 2 years to arrive at that same place. If I can do these things, essentially, I believe that anybody with the right orientation can reach the same level of success with their personal journey. So these are the things that I said I was going to do personally, and I'm doing those things now. If you're interested in viewing my work as a mental health advocate, which is pretty much what I'm doing right now, mental health advocacy. If you're interested in viewing my work, I suggest that you visit my site. My website is www.ifyotuya.com. That's www.ifyotuya.com, and you can view the incredible work that I'm doing now, the exciting work that I've immersed myself in right now. This is my mental health testimony. This is my mental health story. This is a story of my journey through paranoid schizophrenia and my triumph over the disease. Thank you for listening and for watching.